welcome to the Yarn on Yarns YouTube channel, my lovely friends. My name's Angela and you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry as Rainbow Ange. You can also find an Instagram account and a Facebook page for my yarn shop, and I'm filming here today. We're called Yarn on Yarns and we're based in South Wales, just outside of Cardiff in the UK. And here on my channel you can find videos which mostly consist of me chatting away about my knitting, crochet, sometimes sewing and spinning, and also my adventures of being a yarn shop owner. So I hope that you are feeling well today, and if for some reason you're not, well, I hope you are able to be nice and cozy somewhere and are doing a few things that can bring you a bit of comfort. So I have today for you a little bit of shop talk, some works in progress, a few works in progress. I didn't think I'd worked on as much as I had this week, but anyway, you will also find one finished object, although that feels like a bit of a cheat, and also a little bit of sewing this week too. So I'm going to start with my cheats finished object because that will lead me into a little bit of shop talk, and then works in progress and my sewing will be after that. So if you watched my video last time, you will have seen that I had crocheted or started to crochet some hearts, and they're all finished and in the window. So the shop talk is going to be giving you a little tour of the window display, but I also made another little heart, and that's my finished object, and I did something a little bit different with it. So I used one of the red cottons that I had already shown in my last video, but on the front I embroidered "Kiss Me." Not me, all will become clear. In the little row of shops where Yarn on Yarns is based, a couple of doors down is a charity shop. Now I don't know if you have charity shops all over the world, but it's basically a second-hand store. People donate their unwanted things, and if you go in and buy them, then the money raised supports a certain charitable cause. So I was walking past last week and I saw this little bowl in the window, and I thought it'd be perfect for my spring window when I get to that next time. So as you can see, it's a cute little froggy on a lily pad, just sat on the corner of a bowl. I'm assuming it's probably a soap dish or something like that. It just says "Made in Italy" on the bottom, so someone's probably bought that back as a souvenir from a trip and it's no longer wanted. So when I brought it into the shop, one of my customers who comes to a group said, "Oh, that would be quite nice for your Valentine's," because obviously there's the whole kiss your frog to find your Prince Charming fairy tale. So that's where "Kiss Me" comes in, and so I have put the "Kiss Me" heart. It doesn't really sit very well because I'm holding it up at an angle, but the "Kiss Me" heart goes underneath the frog and he's sitting in our window. So yeah, that's not really the biggest finished object you'll ever see me showing here, but it is a finished object, so I'm going to claim it as one. Okay, so that leads me on to shop talk. I will give you a quick tour of the window display. I kept it quite simple this time. Obviously Valentine's is only one day, and we just want to kind of have a little bit of a nod to this romantic time of year. So I've just crocheted up a few hearts and put some pink yarn in the window. So yeah, I'll just show you what that looks like. So from the inside, this is what our window is looking like. I've got the hearts that I crocheted last week. I stuck them in a bowl. I've got a basket of different kinds of pink yarn. Dangling from the ceiling, I just made a few pom-poms. You can't really see those that well, obviously we're looking out onto the light, so, but there's red, dark pink, pink, and then going down to white. In the centre I just have a footstool that I purchased from IKEA when I first took over the shop. I've got a photo frame with some crochet hearts. Little froggy is on the second step there, And then on the other side I have some more of those crochet hearts. So that's basically it. It's pretty simple. I've also put a few sort of heart shaped buttons. I've just scattered them across the floor. So I'm just going to step outside. I'm going to apologise for any noise. Obviously there could be traffic going by, but I'll show you quickly what that looks like from the outside. So yeah, pretty simple, but I think it looks quite nice, and it wasn't too much effort. I probably spent a couple of hours crocheting those hearts, then maybe a couple more making the pom-poms. So yeah, overall a quick and simple window, but for the short sort of holidays, that's all you want really. Don't want to spend hours making things that are only going to be in the window for a maximum of a couple of weeks. I don't think there's much else that's been going on in the shop. We had a small incident in the shop last week. I thought our heater had stopped working. I was sat in the shop on Thursday evening, which is when I stay behind to do all of my admin and paperwork, or as much as I can feasibly get done before I'm falling asleep. And I had the little heater on, and it went pop. And it's quite a new heater, so I was a bit frantic about that, because obviously it's still reasonably cold here at the moment, and the portable heaters are the only source of heating that we have in the shop. But after a bit of fiddling around, it turns out that it's actually the socket to the wall that has a fault to it, and the heater is still working. So I need to get the landlord on to sort that out. How quickly that will happen, I don't know. Our building's actually up for sale, so it's a little bit worrying. In theory, for us, it should just mean a new landlord. I signed a lease for several years when I took the shop over last year, but in practice, you never know exactly what's going to happen. But I'm not worrying about that until something actually happens. So yeah, I think that's it for shop news. So I'm going to quickly hand over to Angela of the Past, as I have a sewing segment this week. Just a quick one. I finished a project bag at the weekend, but it's quite nice, so I thought I would pop a little video here of that object. I don't have it anymore, it's gone off to its new home. So I finished something today, and it's not knitting or crochet, so I thought I would show it to you before it goes off to its new home. One of my regular customers in the shop had requested a large project bag. She is knitting the most gorgeous tank top for her son-in-law. It's a colourwork top, and it is knit from Jemison & Smith's Spindrift yarn, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful, but it requires quite a lot of balls of yarn, and also she's had her pattern enlarged so that she can see the chart a lot easier. So she asked me if I could come up with a large project bag, just a zippered bag like I have for sale in the shop often, but one that would perhaps accommodate her larger project. So I've been promising her this for a couple of weeks now, but hadn't really found the time to do it. As I have had a 2-day weekend this weekend, I finally got round to putting that together for her. This is the bag. It could probably do with a bit of an iron. It's been scrunched up under the machine, but hopefully you will forgive me for that. But it's turned out so lovely. So I made a big patchwork bag with some charm squares that I had lying around. So before I got back into knitting and crochet in a big way, I used to do a lot more quilting and sewing. I even started a machine embroidery course, City and Guilds, when that was going, but due to life and changes and house moving and things like that, I never got around to finishing that. But I've got quite a big stash of fabric and thread and all those sorts of things that go with that. So I raided my fabric. She said she didn't really mind what fabric it was, just that she wanted it to be big enough to accommodate her project. So I found this charm pack that I had with all of these beautiful floral fabrics. So yeah, as you can see, much bigger than my head, this bag, so hopefully it will do for her project. I have no idea what the fabric line is, I'm sorry, and I'm sure I've had this for probably 10 years or so, so unlikely to still be in production. But yeah, I really like it. It's just nice and bright and fun and colourful and floral. So that's one side and that's the other. So hopefully she'll like it, and if she doesn't, well, I love it, so perhaps I will offer to make her another one and get to keep this one myself. I decided I usually use a sort of medium weight iron-on, quite a stiff interfacing for my bag, but because this one's so big I decided to use quilt batting inside, and I've actually, you can't see, but I've actually stitched in the ditches, so it's slightly quilted. But yeah, I'm pretty sure that will accommodate her project. Inside I have got my little orange cat label. So before I took on Yarn and Yarns, I did have an Etsy shop for a while, selling some project bags and bits and pieces. I don't have time to keep that up anymore, but hopefully soon we shall have our own website, and I might put some of my project bags up on the website. So yeah, I think that's probably everything that I needed to say about that, and with any luck I shall be back soon to chat to you about my knitting and crochet finished objects and works in progress. We seem to be getting through this fairly quickly, so it might be another relatively short episode today. I guess it depends on how much time I manage to spend waffling about my works in progress. I've got 5 works in progress to show you today. I'm glancing over here because they're all piled up on the table. If anyone comes into the shop now, I think they'll just roll their eyes at the mess that's on the table in front of me. I have got 4 knitting projects and a crochet project, and I'm also going to have a quick chat about the next thing that will be coming up on my needles. So I will start with a couple of the knitting whips, I think. I'll start with the ones that are perhaps not as exciting. So the first, I have a vanilla sock on the go, always have a vanilla sock on the go. I'm keeping it in this gorgeous little project bag, which was sent to me by my friend Robin, who is Medieval Listing on Instagram. She used to have a podcast, Stitching Between Pages, I think it was called, but she hasn't recorded for a little while, which is a shame. But I know she's busy studying, so I'm sure that's probably the reason why. So yeah, after I finished the blue socks that I think I showed as a finished object last week, I cast on the next pair of socks, and I think I might have shown you the beginnings of them. So it's this lovely sparkle yarn from Opal, and it is the Opal Mit Silber effect, and the colourway is 9484. And if you watched the previous video, you might also remember that I've knitted a pair of these in this colourway before for another customer, but I'm actually I thought I wouldn't enjoy knitting the same colourway twice. I remember not being that enamoured by the yarn, or the colours in the yarn I should say, when I knit the first pair, but it was over sort of like towards the end of December, and I think I just had a lot on and I wasn't feeling too great, and yeah, I think I just didn't take the time to appreciate the colours, because I'm really enjoying it this time round. So I finished the first sock. I love these kind of, it's not as you can see, it's not like a regular stripe. You get this sort of large stripe of different sort of blues, so deep blue through to this nice sort of turquoisey colour, and then you get this sort of section which has got greens and yellows mixed in with blues, and that blue's almost like a purpley colour. And yeah, I really love it. I think it sort of reminds me a bit of Northern Lights. I think it's like the greens and the yellows, you know. But anyway, I have finished sock number 1, and I went to the cinema last night, and before I left the shop to jump on the train, I made sure that I'd cast on for the cuff. So leg of sock number 2 is now also done. I've just popped in the waste yarn for the afterthought heel. So yeah, I've just got to knit down the foot. So I've decided this week that I've got a few commission projects that I really need to crack on with. We're off on our trip in 3.5 weeks, so I'd like to get a fair bit of the commission stuff that I've got on and off the needles by then. So in the last week or so I spent a lot of time working on my Angelica sweater, and you'll see that a little bit later. But I think I need to leave that at home, and while I'm in the shop I've decided that I shall work on commission projects to get those done. So I'm not going to bring any of my own personal projects in whilst I have the commissions to do. So I've got classes all day tomorrow and also all day on Thursday. The lady who has commissioned these socks comes on Thursday morning, so I'm hoping maybe I'll get these finished before then. So if I sit and work on them throughout Wednesday, I reckon I can get them done. So yeah, that's it. Oops. I've just dropped that on the floor and the yarn's rolled right to the other side of the shop. I'm just going to leave it. I'll clear it up in a while. Okay, so that's work in progress number 1. And actually I think I will talk to you about future knitting right now, just go out of order, why not? Because my future knitting that I have lined up will be my next pair of commission socks. I've got about 5 pairs of socks to knit, mostly for the same customer, and I've spoken about her before. She has real problems with her feet, but she really enjoys wearing hand knitted socks, but she can't necessarily make them herself because she's not very dexterous with her hands, so she can only knit with larger needles and chunkier yarns. So she has picked out this colourway from our Indie Dyed range. So if you can see above my head, the lovely yarns by Miranda May, and I was really excited when she decided to go for a pair of socks in this. So this is the Storm's End colourway, and yeah, look at all those amazing colours in this yarn. So I'm going to wind this up later so that I can get this straight on the needles as soon as I have finished the Opal Sparkle socks. This is a 75% superwash merino and 25% nylon blend. Yeah, so Storm's End colourway, and I'm really excited to see how that knits up. There's so many gorgeous colours in this yarn. Yeah, just it was one of the ones that I was tempted to snuffle for myself, and there is still one skein left behind me. But no, I must resist. So yeah, that's future knitting. Okay, back to works in progress. The next work in progress is another commission knit. I've got 2 of these to make. So one of my regular customers requested a couple of little baby jackets. She just wants really sort of simple, traditional white jackets, and I think that's why she's asked me to knit them. She's more than capable of knitting them herself, but she really enjoys knitting with the multicoloured yarns, so things like the Serdar Crofter or the Debbie Bliss Rialto print, the Stylecraft Batik. She used to do a lot of knitting, has come back to knitting recently, feels like she can only manage sort of simple projects, but to offset that she's been choosing some nice bright fun yarns. So I think she just doesn't want to knit with the white, although she wants to gift these little jackets to a couple of twins that are ready to come into the world in her family. She doesn't want to do the knitting of them. But that's fine. Yeah, not the most exciting, but they're pretty quick. So for the first one I'm using this pattern, which is from the UK Hand Knitting Association, and it's their pattern number 40. So I'm just making this little jacket in the centre. They're quite quick makes, so although they're not the most exciting, they come off the needles fairly quickly. I'm keeping it in one of my project bags. I thought to offset the boring whiteness of everything, I would keep the project in a nice fun bag. So yeah, I've spent probably a couple of afternoons on and off in the shop between customers and things like that, knitting on these, and I've managed to knit the back the two sides that look like a complete rag are all curling up, but yeah, when it's all sewn up and done, it'll be fine. And I'm currently working on the first sleeve, so I've got to the point in the sleeve where I need to do the raglan increases. So I'm going to work on this in the shop this afternoon once I have finished recording and done some of the jobs around the shop that I want to get done today. So yeah, I'm hoping that all of the knitting will be done on this. I mean, these sleeves, I think the maximum you get up to is about 45 or so stitches, so there's never that many stitches on the needle, so they fly off pretty quickly. So yeah, I'm hoping to have that all knitted, aside from the button band, and maybe even sewn up. I guess it will depend on how long I get to knit between customers and things this afternoon. So yeah, for those I'm just using a really standard baby yarn that's pretty common here in the UK. It's Sirdar Snugly double knit, which is a blend of, it's all synthetic, so it's 55% nylon, 45% acrylic, but it's quite a nice soft baby yarn, so it's quite popular for basic baby knits. So yeah, hopefully that will be off the needles in the next day or so. Okay, so next project is another sock, and these are my banyan leaf socks, and I think I showed you the first sock in my last video as almost finished. I just had the toe left to pop in there, so that one is all finished now. It's got this gorgeous pattern at the top of the sock, see there on both sides, and I'm knitting this in Knitting in France yarn in the Strawberry Frappe colourway, and again this is a sparkle yarn. I don't know if that's, you can kind of see some of the sparkle showing up. The sparkle is a lot more subtle in this than the opal yarn, but I'm not sure, that could be just because it's against a much lighter colour. So yeah, first sock is finished, and at the weekend I cast on the second sock and I've done the leg. Now I haven't blocked this yet, so it looks a bit messy and scrunched up. My first sock looked a bit like this because you change needle sizes on this sock, so you get this bit in the centre of the leaf which kind of pulls a bit, but that does, as you can see, it does sort of block out once you've soaked the sock, so I'm not worried about that. So yeah, I've got to the point where I need to put in the heel flap. I'm test knitting those socks for Charlotte, who has the Charlotte and Gus podcast, although she also hasn't recorded for a little while. The socks are due to come out, I think, in the next few days. The test knit ends tomorrow. Obviously I'm not going to get my second sock finished, but I'd worked through the whole of one sock and given her feedback on the pattern, so I've kind of been able to do that for her. I'm going to work on these in the evenings over the next couple of days, so by the end of the week they should be done. I find these fairly hard on my hands just because I've gone down a needle size, so Charlotte asked me to test knit the 72 stitch sock. I usually knit a 64 stitch sock for me, so I went down to a 2mm needle rather than my usual 2.25, and the fabric, I love the fabric, but it's pretty dense, and yeah, it's just a little bit harder on my hands, so I usually kind of rattle through a sock fairly quickly, but I'm not able to knit on those for as long a periods as I usually would. I don't think there's much else to say about that other than keep your eye on Ravelry for that pattern release. It's really fun. I mean, all the details in the leg, and then it's pretty simple knit for the foot. So yeah, really fun pattern. I've really enjoyed knitting that, and I'm not usually a sort of muted pinky kind of girl, but I have enjoyed working with that yarn. There's lots of let's get the sock back here. There's lots of really kind of like subtle flecks of colour in this Knitting in France yarn, which has made it really fun to work with, and I've got a lovely pretty pair of socks to wear. Yeah, the going down the needle sizes worked fairly well. They're slightly tight getting them over my heel, but once they're on, they're really comfortable. I have 2 more projects to show you, one crochet and one knitting. So for the crochet, I have dragged out a project that hasn't seen the light of day for a little while. On Ravelry, I'm calling this my summer mandala shawl, and the finished project will look something like that. This now came as a pattern pull out in Simply Crochet magazine. I don't know the issue, but they had like a summer pull out, and I saw this project. I started it last summer, really loved it. I don't know, I mean, it's obviously a mandala, a pie shawl. Don't know if I'll ever necessarily wear it as a shawl. Really wanted to make it. I loved the fact that there were lots of bright fun colours and lots of different stitch patterns to keep you interested. So I started it, but then it got put away towards the end of last year in favour of gift knitting and commission knitting. I'm desperate to start a new crochet shawl, and I really want to make the Lost in Time shawl, which you can find over on Ravelry if you want to have a look at that pattern. But I am holding off until I finish this. I've got about 10 rounds left, I think, but the rounds are obviously quite long and I keep running out of yarn. So I chose my yarn back in the summer. I'm going to hold up what I've got so far. It's going to be a bit tricky to show you. And I've got a marker in here somewhere, here. So when I last showed it to you, I was up here, so I've added quite a few inches. Each round takes forever now. This round here I think was 700 and something or other treble crochets, which took me nearly all day on and off, sat in the shop doing that. It was a day with lots of interruptions, but yeah. So each round is taking a long time now, and I've run out of a lot of yarns. When I picked out this project last year, I just went around the shop and kind of picked out colours, following the recommended colours, not the recommended yarn, but the recommended colours in the pattern. But I only grabbed sort of one ball, and a lot of them were just 50-gram balls. So I've run out of a lot of the colours now, and I don't have, some of them I've sold out of in the shop and I can't get hold of again. So like this bright yellow, I think I'm supposed to use that again next, and I just don't have anything that's similar to that, so I'm starting to have to change. And again, like this purple that I used in this round is not the same as the original purple, but I mean it doesn't really matter, it's just for me. But it slowed me down a bit because I have to sort of think about what colour I'm going to add in next. So yeah, that is the summer, or I'm calling it my summer mandala shawl. I think, let me have a look, see what it's called in the pattern. If it says, it's just called the mandala shawl. But I've got it on my Ravelry project page, and I think I've got a link there to the shawl project itself. So if you want more details on the designer and things like that, it's over there. The yarns I'm using, it's a mixture of Debbie Bliss Baby Cash Merino. I think I put one Debbie Bliss Rialto DK in there. I've also used some Peyton's Extra Fine Merino. I think that was it. Yeah. So yeah, I'm going to try and stick to those yarns, even if I can't exactly match the colour. And it's made on a 3.5mm hook. So yeah, hopefully I am going to be motivated to get that finished soon, because I really, really want to start the Lost in Time shawl. And that one I am keeping in a giant project bag that I made, which is this fun orange cat's fabric that I picked up from IKEA. So yeah, it's perfect for multi-balled yarn. I made it nice and tall, so yeah, bigger than my head. Oh, and I think I forgot to mention that my banyan leaf socks, I'm keeping those in this gorgeous project bag from Loop and Bar, which the material matches perfectly with that lovely yarn. Okay, so on to the final work. in progress that I have for you today, and no surprises, as I've already mentioned it earlier, it is my Angelica sweater. So last time I showed this, I was on the seed stitch panel at the back. I've now finished the back, but it wasn't all smooth sailing. I had made a mistake in the seed stitch, and I'd made it. It was in the project the last time I showed you the project, but I kept telling myself I can live with that, or it'll block out and it won't notice quite as bad. And I just kept knitting, and every time I picked up the project I kept trying to convince myself that I could live with the mistake. It was just one of the seed stitch rows was out, but you could definitely see it. So having knitted 4 inches of double moss stitch, it's called in the pattern, but it is seed stitch also, I really decided that I couldn't live with it. So I ripped out 4 inches of knitting, which was a couple of evenings worth of work. I could have fixed it straight away and saved myself a hell of a lot of time, but you know, we do these crazy things to ourselves, don't we? So anyway, having ripped back, I re-knit, and then I had another 2 inches to go, and then obviously I had a bit of shaping to do at the top of the project for the back. So the back is now finished. So it's got that lovely spiralling rib, and then the big double moss stitch panel at the top. So that is all done, which means I'm on to the exciting part, which is the front, all of the cabled goodness. And I have only wanted to work on this project. I'm just so in love with this project, it's ridiculous. The yarn is British Blue 100 from Erica Knight, and the pattern is also Erica Knight. The colourway I'm using is called Mrs. Dalloway, and this is where I am on the front. Yay! I just love working these cables, can you tell? So yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I've still got a long way to go, but it's really fun. And actually I thought that it would be one that I'd have to stop working on in the project, because obviously, as you can see, there's different types of cables as you go across the front. And I thought, oh, I'm never going to be able to concentrate on that in the shop. But actually, it's not too bad. This cable and this cable obviously repeats, and then you get to do something different in the middle. But every wrong side row, you're just knitting the knits and purling the pearls. So it's really only every other row that you have to concentrate on. And then on this cable panel is probably the trickiest, because you're cabling and twisting on every right side row. This one is an 8-row cable repeat, and of those 8 rows you're only doing twisted stitches on 2 of the rows. And then now I've switched to this bigger cable in the center panel. This is a 12-row repeat, and you're only cabling on 1 of those rows. No, sorry, got that the wrong way around. This one's an 8-row repeat, and you're cabling on 1 row. This one's a 12-row repeat, and you're cabling on 2 rows. So it's really not that bad. And then obviously we've got the double moss stitch panels on either side. So I've got markers in just to denote the end of the double moss stitch panels. The rest of it's fairly straightforward. You can see where one cable ends and one begins. I was just a bit worried that I could get a bit mixed up on this bit, because the next cable panel starts with a bunch of pearls. Obviously on some of the seed stitch or moss stitch rows you'll be ending with a pearl, some you'll be ending with a knit. So I thought, just to be on the safe side, to save myself having to count every row, and given the fact that if I do work on this in the shop I'm going to be picking it up and putting it down a lot, I put the markers in there. So yeah, I did the first, up to here is like 5.5 inches including the rib, and then you change this cable panel. This cable panel goes right up to near the top, and then you get a honeycomb panel. But yeah, this yarn is beautiful. It's 100% Blue Face Leicester. The colour's beautiful. The cables are fabulous. There are a couple of things that I wish were slightly different about the pattern. the cable patterns are all written out, so there's no charts, and obviously some of the cable patterns have an 8-row pattern repeat, some of them have a 12-row pattern repeat. The moss stitch is a 4-row pattern repeat, so it can get a little bit confusing. So to help myself along that journey, I spent some time, right, so you can see how far I've got to go till I get to change to the honeycomb pattern at the top. I've got all these rows to cross out, but I've just did myself a little grid. This is the order of the cable panels, so it's B, C, D, F is the middle, and then you repeat on the opposite direction, so you then go D, C, B. But after every row I'm crossing out where I am, so that I can at a glance see where I am on each different cable pattern. And then for the cables that only have twists every so often, I've ringed those rows, so I know that, and all of these other rows I'm just knitting the knits and purling the pearls, but I need to stop and concentrate on these. So I hope that makes a bit of sense. But it would be quite nice if the cables were charted. Yeah, I would appreciate that. The other thing that's slightly, I'm getting back to, if you watched my Rowan magazine review, I'm getting back to ranty Ange. The other thing that's annoying me about just the picture of this pattern, I love the way that this is styled, although I find the photography quite dark down one side, and I've got a few of the other patterns in this series, and also I find the main pictures a little bit dark. They're not too bad, but I think I can see they're going for the moody look, but I think they need to show the knitwear off a little bit better. But it makes me wonder maybe what they're trying to hide, particularly as there is quite a glaring mistake on the middle panel of this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this, but can you see there, those top few cables? If you look down here, it's like one big cable, and then up here, whoever sample knit this, it's like twisted one side of those V's, and that is definitely not in the pattern. And now I've seen it, I can't unsee it, and it's really annoying me. And I get that it must be difficult. Sam, who works in the shop with me on a couple of days a week, she has been doing a bit of sample knitting for Rowan, and I know that they book their photo shoots and the photographer and the models and everything in advance. The people that are knitting their sample garments are knitting to a deadline. So I know it must be tricky if you get a garment with a mistake in it. You've kind of got to go with it. But I mean, that's a fairly obvious mistake, isn't it? I'm sure whoever knit that would have seen that straight away if they'd have been paying attention. So, and to not do it just once, but on 3 of those cables. Oh well. I'm quite pernickety, aren't I? I just, these patterns and things, this yarn is not the cheapest yarn. It's a beautiful yarn, and it deserves to be at the price point that it is, but you're trying to sell the pattern, you're trying to sell the yarn, and yeah. Anyway, obviously it didn't put me off making this, so I don't know why I'm making such a big deal of it. It's such a gorgeous garment. But yeah, just my observations on that pattern. But I wouldn't let that put you off of knitting this. It's gorgeous. I've kind of set myself a deadline of trying to finish this before we go to New Zealand, but that's 3.5 weeks away, and I've also got 1.5 pair of socks to finish, 2 baby jackets. So yeah, I don't know if it's going to be done. I mean, it doesn't really matter if it's not. Obviously this is not a garment I'm going to take to New Zealand. They're going to be in their summertime, so I don't need a wool pullover. But I won't be able to take it with me because I should be near the end if I haven't finished it, so I don't want to drag it all over. And I'm just enjoying knitting it so much, I want to see it through to the end. But if I don't get there, I don't get there. I figured out, so I'm going to assume that the model here is wearing size small. So I figured out that I need to knit 3 more. This is an 8 row pattern repeat. Every 8 rows is an inch. So I need to knit 3 more cables than is shown on here to get to the size that I need. So I think that was a total of 14 and I've done 2. So yeah, I think it will be quite a challenge, considering it's taken me probably 3.5 weeks to do the back, and that was really simple. I think it's going to be quite a challenge to get this done by then, but we'll give it a go. At the moment, as I say, it's all I want to knit on. Yesterday I didn't bring this to the shop at all because I wanted to work on the socks and also the baby jacket, and I thought if I bring that to the shop with me, that's all I'm going to want to work on. But today I bought it just so I can record this video, but I'm going to have to, you know, bury it somewhere in the office to try not to think about it. But it is literally all I can think about knitting wise at the minute. I want it. I think that's probably enough of me going on about the Angelica. I've come to the end, thank goodness, I'm sure you're saying, of everything that I wanted to chat to you about. Other than I want to give a quick shout out to Kim, who is Blue Cherub, and Kim mentioned my channel on one of her videos recently, and I've had quite a few new subscribers come over, which I am assuming is as a direct result of that. We're quite a small little community here, and I appreciate each and every one of my viewers, so I wanted to say a big thank you to Kim for sending some more lovely people my way, and also just to say that Kim has her own YouTube channel, and if I remember I'll stick a link below so that you can go and check her out. She is a brilliant crocheter. She's got some fantastic projects on the go, so if you are interested in crochet, then you should definitely pop on over, and even if you're not a crocheter yourself, you should pop on over just to see the fabulous work that she is doing. So with that, I am going to wrap up and get on with my day. Thank you for joining me, and until next time, big woolly hugs to you all. Bye for now.